Well, good afternoon and welcome to the Village of Depew. We are very pleased to be here to talk about some recent county funding through the Community Development Block Grant Program and the consortium, as well as additional investments that have been made by Erie County into not only municipal assets in the Village of Depew, but also business as a part of our Storefront Revitalization Program. I'm Erie County Executive Mark Poloncarz, and I'm pleased to be joined by Mayor of the Village of Depew, Kevin Peterson, as well as Depew Trustee Audrey Hamernik. I'm also joined by our Deputy Commissioner for the Department of Environment and Planning, Thomas Baines, our Director of our Economic Programs, Toronto Bachelor, as well as Paul D'Orlando, who is the Director of our Community Development Block Grant Programs and oversees the Block Grant Consortium. In the past 5 years, through the Community Development Block Grant Programs that Erie County partners with 34 municipalities as part of our consortium, $674,000 worth of projects has been invested in the Village of Depew. This includes over $400,000 in sidewalk replacements, including replacing cracked, lifted, deteriorated village sidewalks, including sidewalks on Gould, Terrace Boulevard, Bloomfield, Meridian, Marengo, Warsaw, Argus, Columbia, and Lincoln. And it's always part of our goal is the Community Development Block Grant Consortium is to make communities much more accessible for all. And as we know, if we have older sidewalks, that is a very difficult thing for many people, especially if they're in a wheelchair, to traverse. In 2022, as part of the Community Development Block Grant Consortium, $165,000 was invested in the new playground at West Dawson Park on Columbia Avenue. And that's another example of creating a better, stronger community and neighborhood through the investments that we make through the Community Development Block Grant Consortium. Sidewalks and playgrounds make a big difference for the people who live there, and it's part of our investments to ensure that we continue to have working, livable communities for all. The Village of Depew has a proud history going back certainly more than 100 years, and we want to ensure the next century for the Village of Depew through the investments we make. Also, as part of our Community Development Block Grant funding, as during the COVID period, $108,000 was invested in the Senior Center, which is just in the back of the municipal building here, for COVID-related restroom safety improvements, as well as the installation of touchless faucets and work to be done on the HVAC system to make certain that the facility would protect the individuals that are in there. We know what happened during COVID. We understand the issues that exist when you have an environment with an older building that doesn't have a good HVAC system, that doesn't have touchless faucets, how COVID was spread. And so that's why it was very important that we did that not only here in the Village of Depew, but we did that with a number of senior centers across Erie County. And then we have our Storefront Revitalization Program. Right after this, we'll be actually going to Antoinette's Sweets, which is one of the most popular chocolate establishments in all of Erie County. It's actually my mother's favorite. She grew up in Lancaster, so she loves Antoinette's Sweets, but that's actually in the Village of Depew. And we've invested $40,000 through the Storefront Revitalization Program in a new overhang, recessed lighting, synthetic stone facade panel. The idea is to take these older businesses. Maybe the owner does not have enough money to revitalize the storefront to make it a better, more welcoming location, and to invest in it to ensure that these businesses can not only succeed for the near future but thrive going forward. And another example of that is the Green Acres Ice Cream on Broadway, in which a brand new deck was installed with the $40,000 grant that they received, which not only promotes more people coming there and staying there, in the long run it promotes more business. And in Erie County, we mean business. We want to see businesses thrive, and in the end, we have a better, stronger community for it. I want to turn it over to our mayor, Kevin Peterson, to talk a little bit about the work that's being done in the village, not only through the Community Development Block Grant Program in the city, but I know he has a number of projects that he's very proud of. And it's just an example of how we can invest in our communities to create a stronger community for all in the long run. So, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here at the Village of Depew. As the county executive mentioned, we try and take advantage of any opportunity there is for community development block grant funds, as well as money that became available through the CARES Act. He mentioned a couple of projects. We're also working on one right now with the American Rescue Plan money, where we're giving back to the community and building a $1.8 million pavilion and bathroom setup, replacing 60-year-old project that was in our #1 park, Fireman's Park. So out here in front of the Don Polsky, which I know we took a tour of this morning, we'll be using some of our community development block grant money to repair the sidewalks, again, as he mentioned, on Gould Avenue here, both in front of the Don Polsky and across the street where the church is. This is a very walkable area of the village, and it's important that people can feel safe walking throughout the village. Appreciate the county executive being here and all the help that Erie County, Paul D'Orlando in particular, helping the village out in securing these funds. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to turn the podium over to our Deputy Commissioner for the Department of Environment and Planning, Thomas Baines, and then also to Trana Batchelor, our Director of Economic Business Opportunities here in Erie County, to talk a little bit more about these programs and how they help out communities.
Thank you. Again, Thomas Baines, Deputy Commissioner of Planning and Economic Development for Erie County. And the county executive said it right. In Erie County, we mean business. That means supporting our businesses through programs such as the Storefront program that we'll see later today, but also just getting down to the business of government. What you see here today is the culmination of federal dollars, CDBG dollars, working through the county and then ultimately through to impact this community here today in the village of Depew. What we experienced even just earlier in the last couple weeks with the wildfires from Canada impacting our air quality here in Erie County, that's why it's so important for us to invest in the HVAC systems in our senior community center here today. But with that, we also like to invest in our communities so that they can get back outside. That's why having walkable communities is important. That's why we spend over $400,000 to address those issues here in this community and village, in this village of Depew. And then lastly, we like to focus on our kids as well, our youth, with investing in playgrounds. We want our youth to be outside and be active. So that's why we get down to the business and get it done in Erie County. And so I'm so proud to be a part of the Department of Environment and Planning, because as we move forward, we love working with our municipalities to see the impact that we have on a daily basis in our communities. So keep your eyes open for more storefront reveals as we move forward into that program, and then ultimately more reveals of more projects happening in and around other municipalities as we reinvest and invest with the community development block program funds and other home funds. So thank you, and we'll turn it over to Trana.
Good morning, or almost afternoon. I'm Trana Batchelor. I am the Director of Business Assistance in Erie County, and I am very, very pleased to be the person who oversees their storefront program, Storefront Revitalization program. Currently, we are funding over 260 projects, giving these storefronts a much-needed facelift, so to speak. And it's been really, really wonderful to see the effects that these grants have had on the local communities, as well as on the business owners and the businesses that really make up these communities and make these communities great. There are so many more that are off to the races now. We are, just trying to kind of get as many done as possible, and trying to be as patient as we can, considering the labor market and the construction market as well right now. But we've been getting through a lot of these projects and very excited to see more. The county executive pledged $10 million originally and added another $5 million to the fund so that we can affect as many storefronts as possible. So very excited to see all of the wonderful work being done, not only on the community development side, but also on the economic development side. Thank you.
Thank you, Trana. As they say, the old proverb, it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a community to invest in a village. And that's exactly what we're doing here in the village of Depew, as we are in other places across Erie County. With that, I'll be glad to take any questions on the topic.
Can you just give some detail on where the funds came from?
Annually, Erie County receives a significant amount of money from the federal government as part of a community development block grant program. And then we have a consortium in which the county, as well as the municipalities that are part of the consortium, does not include the city of Buffalo, does not include Amherst, and some other municipalities because they get their own direct cash. But we come together and we decide on the projects that are going to be funded in the upcoming year. And it runs everything from sewers, sidewalks, streetscape enhancements, playgrounds, as we talked about in the community development block grant world. Then we also have other pots of fund that we use. The Storefront Revitalization Fund was a result of having a significant surplus following the 2021 budget year, and we wanted to put that back into the community, so we created the Storefront Revitalization Program. And then the issues with the HVAC, was that CDBG?
Yep.
Okay, so that was Community Development Block Grant as well. I'm trying to remember because we've had a lot of federal funds come through, the CARES Act, the American Rescue Plan, the Community Development Block Grant Program on a daily basis that comes in through the county. I'm going to turn it over to Paul DiOrlando, who actually oversees the Community Development Block Grant Program, to just talk a little bit more about how much we receive annually and the decision making that goes into spending it.
So Erie County is an entitlement grantee community under the Housing and Urban Development Agency, and thus receives just over $3 million annually. And that money is spread out amongst 34 municipalities that all choose to band together to be part of what is called the Erie County Community Development Consortium. So those monies are then disseminated, and the actual community projects that the county executive has talked about here, the park projects, the senior project, the sidewalks, those particular projects are decided by an actual project selection committee of those mayors or supervisors, and then approved by the county executive, at the end before an actual plan goes into HUD every year for how the money's going to be spent. That's only part of it, though. Another big chunk of the Community Development Block Grant, just over $1.5 million, is a housing rehabilitation program. And that program we fixed last year was exactly 100 units. Mostly single-family homes, but some are for absentee owners, for low-income renters, also those buildings. Those are structural repairs, roofs, siding, windows, doors, electrical, and heating mainly. There is a small waiting list for that program, but like I say, just over $1.5 million of the CDBG, and another separate federal grant we get is a Home Investment Partnership Grant. So those two combined, we also assist with that. A big chunk of it also is housing rehab.
And so of this consortium of municipalities, is it spread out based on population, or is it Depew gets it this year, Cheektowaga gets it next year, that type of thing?
Yeah, in a way, yes. So there's a scoring system where the actual mayors and supervisors of those 34 municipalities will help to decide, but our staff actually works on the bulk of it. So the bulk of it's an actual scoring system. So each municipality can put in 3 projects every year, and right now it's up to $150,000 a year per project. And however much money we have at the end of the scoring, that just goes right down the list. And part of it is higher poverty, part of it is higher level of low income, and senior centers are also have a separate category. This area here we have in Depew, where most of all the sidewalks have gone on, is their highest poverty area that they have. It's the highest level of low income is right here in Main Panora. So it's this block group here to your left, and then this one over to your right. If you were to go over the tracks there, most all those sidewalks have been done, and a lot of road paving in that area because it's scored higher, because it's much higher poverty area than some of the other areas a little further away, the other side of transit, I should say.
And Mayor, if you could. So I mean, what is it like to see the money come into a small place like Depew? I mean, it's we all know Depew, but I feel like it's a drive-through a lot of times. A lot of people from the bigger cities. So talk about that a little bit.
Well, I mean, we're not building a lot of homes like some other communities are, so we're sort of landlocked as far as tax base goes. So any opportunity that we can get to improve parts of the village, we want to take advantage of. Just find it very, very important. A lot of things are some people say, well, why don't you do my sidewalk? Well, it happens to fall outside of those areas that are eligible. And in all honesty, residents are responsible for the sidewalks in front of their homes. That's why when we can take advantage in this particular part of Depew, it's very important to do, because it's not going to be something that everybody's going to jump and say, hey, I'm going to write a check and we're going to do the sidewalk in front of our house.
And doesn't this then leave money freed up? I guess if these sidewalks need replaced, you replace them, and then you kind of got more money for other projects?
I wish it worked that way, because we can always find something to do with whatever we save on. I'm sure we can find something else to do. And the worst thing about it is you only want to keep the tax base down, take taxes down, and we want to do our best with that and be good stewards of the money that we get.
And what are you hearing from your residents? I mean, the sidewalks they're nice. I see them. What are you hearing from them?
Sometimes you don't hear as much good things, but if you don't hear, I mean, if you don't hear, I guess I take it this way. I ran unopposed this year, and there was only a handful of people that came out to vote. So I must be doing the right thing with our board and our department heads, because everybody's been working together now for over 4 years, and that's really the key. We all have to be working together, as I always used to call it, rowing a canoe in the same direction. So I take their silence as a vote of approval. So. And we never want to be in a position that we were in 2017 when there was this opportunity to dissolve the village. That's not something we want to do. So every positive thing that we do here, with whatever way we get the money, is a benefit to the village and the residents, who spoke very much highly. 72%, I believe, they wanted to remain a village. So it's important. I took the mandate from that vote.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, there's no further questions. I hope everyone has a great day, and we will be going to Antoinette Suites to check out the work that was done there on their storefront, and possibly have a piece of candy or two, or three. Thanks, everyone.